up, YouTube? Sorry for the delay between videos here. It's been a kind of a crazy end to the school year this year. When it comes to just kind of managing the little business that I've started now, I guess, with these books and things, as well as just managing the end of the school year and everything like that. I've just been a little bit delayed between videos, and I do intend to try to catch up a little bit over the summer, hopefully. Fingers crossed that I can get that done. But if not, definitely be going hard in the new school year. But in the meantime, I figured I would just share this video with you guys. I want to show you a big thanks to Thomas Roop and to Eric Lawson. These guys run a VodCast through Google Hangout on Air to talk about all kinds of things in education, whether it is ed tech or it is classroom innovation or anything like that. And they reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to do a VodCast with them about gamification. And I'm super happy with how it turned out. They asked some great questions, and me being as long-winded as I am, kind of, really spoke quite a bit about gamification. I think for a lot of people who are new to this, it really shows you the diversity that exists in a gamified classroom and the strengths that you can actually see in your own spaces should you try this. And I was just really happy. It was really lighthearted and just really easygoing, kind of just like talking to two best friends. So figured I'd share it with you guys and let you see it. And thanks again to Thomas and to Eric for allowing me to share this video on my own personal YouTube channel as well. You can find more about what they do by searching them up under the hashtag MoreEDU, because they run or are part of running some weekly Twitter chats, and they have a really great PLN that you'd want to follow. So feel free to check it out. I'm a big fan of what they do, and thanks again for their support in getting gamification spread across, because it's definitely a game changer. Hope you like the interview. Thanks.
All right, and we're once again back in live and doing another broadcast, another VodCast here. So alongside me as well is Eric Lawson. I'm Tom Rupin. Today we have Scott Hebert. Scott is a science teacher from Canada, just outside of Edmonton. He is a TEDx speaker, and he is also an author of the book called Press Start to Begin, which is about gamification in EDU. So this chat here today is about gamification. So welcome, Scott, and thanks for joining us.
I really appreciate it.
Great. So we're going to kind of jump right into it and start talking a little bit about gamification. Yeah. So if you want to talk to us a little bit about what you did in your classroom and how you went about introducing gamification to your kids and into your school system.
Yeah, sure. So it all started, I was a teacher in Calgary in K-4, and I was a phys ed specialist. So it's all about fun. And when we kind of had some issues come up family-wise, we had to make a sudden move back up to just outside of Edmonton, like you mentioned. And we were helping a family member. And in that, I had to give up my job. So when I gave up my job, I ended up getting hired at a middle school. So I went from elementary to middle school, and I went from phys ed to science. So I went from kind of the non-academic subject, so to speak, to a core subject in science. And what I found was you could really see a lack of enthusiasm for education. And so just looking from kindergarten to grade 4, you could see this excitement. And then by the time the kids were in grade 4, when I had them, this lack of enthusiasm for school. And then it was really pronounced with a lot of kids when I got here for the 8th grade. So what I did was I kind of just learned how to teach the subject for the first year. And then I took about a year or so, I would say, of just kind of dabbling with the ideas of trying to figure out different ways to engage kids. And I kept coming across the concept of gamification, but there wasn't a whole lot about it at the time. There was like hey, if we turned it into a game, or we use game-based principles, and there was, sparing information, until I found a book called The Multiplayer Classroom, which was written by Lee Sheldon. And he's actually a game designer. And he gamified a university game design course. So he was like, wow, if I'm teaching game design, I might as well gamify the course. And so he was kind of one of the original pioneers. And then I learned about another guy by the last name of Zimmerman, if I'm not mistaken. And so I kind of followed a little bit of their stuff. And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to go for it. So I started putting feelers out to kids, and they were like, hey, if whatever you can do to make school more engaging to me, I'm all for. So I kind of just did some planning, and last school year was my first full attempt at it. And it was overwhelmingly successful, more than I could have ever imagined. So I've just finished my second complete year of it. And I guess you can kind of say the rest is history. It's people have really gravitated towards it, and people have really been quite open to a different style of education. And so far that reception has been really well.
I think 2 years ago, we did a conference here in Maine, our state teacher tech conference, and one of the presentations was Classcraft. And when we saw where it was then, we looked at it and said, "This looks like it's a great idea, but it's an unfinished product where it is right now." And that was 2 years ago. So it was like, great, you could go in and you could get your achievements, and you could go and you could build your character, but what do you actually do with it? And the sounds of everything. This has come a long way now. So we've gone beyond the fact that you're just building an avatar where you actually can do competitions in your classroom. So tell us a little bit about what you do for gamification specifically in your classroom and how you incorporate that to keep that engagement going with those kids, especially nowadays where kids want to have that little bit more of a competition basis in the classroom, especially when gamification comes to play.
Sure. I'll try to keep this short because there's a lot that I've started to do. So one of the first programs I did learn about was Classcraft, and I learned about that in Lee Sheldon's book. But the more I did research, and this is not a knock on Classcraft at all, but what I found was kids are so tech heavy and everything is an app that when I trialed and piloted it with their free trial, it just became another app on their phone. So I said,
sure.
And I didn't find it to be deep enough for what I wanted. I didn't want it to be like all fluffy and, oh, you're building an avatar so you have an avatar and then, well, what does that have to do with the curriculum? So I really wanted to go deeper. So what I had to do is I started to figure out a bunch of different things. So what I figured out right away is that having a story with a running narrative similar to a movie or a book was massively successful for the kids. So in the game, I'm called Master Hebes, and the kids named me. That was they decided. So I'm Master Hebes, the ruler of Scientia Terra, which is nothing but Science Land in Latin, because Science Lands was a terrible name for my game. So I just threw it in Google Translate and found some better sounding names, like German and stuff didn't work. I couldn't do that. Based on science, I went through Latin roots because, a lot of the derivatives. And so I started with that, and then I came up with the concept of that all kids would relate to. So I thought Lord of the Rings and things like that in medieval, because I used to play a game called Diablo, which is an RPG.
Yes.
And I was obsessive with it when I was young, and the idea that you could collect stuff that could help you, and you could sell stuff and barter and progress and level up. And what I realized really quickly as I started to design is that school really is an RPG if you look at it from that design. School is exactly designed as an RPG. You start as a nothing, and education is supposed to level you up and enlighten you and make you better. But a lot of kids didn't feel that way. So I said, okay, so can I actually make an RPG in my classroom? So we started with the story. Like I said, I'm Master Hebes, and I have a bunch of different communities. So I took my units, translated the unit names in Latin, and I made 5 worlds. And I said, they're, heavy resource town. And what they do is they discover this powerful stone and a bad guy called the Minotaur King, which I used because on the website template I had, they had a wicked graphic of an evil Minotaur guy. So I was like, well, that's done for me. So I just used him. And so I said, he's trying to find this stone to rule the land, and my people are trying to hide it, conquer all the land. So that was the overarching story. So now the kids had an idea about what they're doing throughout the year. Each level or world took 2 months because I have 5 units that I teach. So 2 months to get through each, which was traditionally what most teachers here do. And then I had to connect, because one of the biggest things that kids told me all the time was, I don't understand when I'm going to use this in my life. When is this relevant to me? So what I did was I have them meet characters to find their work. So I use an app called Blipper, or Blip AR, which is very much like Erasma for people who aren't unfamiliar with Blip. And I have these trigger images all over my room. So the kids will scan them, and then characters will pop up. So you might find like a frightened mother and a child, and you have to calm their child down so they don't get discovered by writing a book for the child based on some of the scientific concepts that we learned. Or you find a hobbit who's fallen in a well and the family can't get him out. So you design a hydraulic or a pneumatic lift to get him out of the well. So the kids were learning practical uses for the science that they were learning. And what I found was they took care of it, because they were like, oh my gosh, if I don't help this family, then that kid could get discovered. And then, like, I'm pretty ruthless. So I'm like, well, the kids get discovered and that family gets eliminated or shipped away. Right. So kids started to really connect with the people that they met. And then I started to tie in ethics this year, so that if you didn't help someone, maybe the bad guys helped them, and then you meet them later in the year and now they're fighting against you. Yeah. As opposed to if you would have helped them early, then later in the game when you met them, they may have had some special card or potion that they've crafted and they return to you as a thank you. So once I had the story and everything set, I created character classes based on RPG. So in my game, you can be a barbarian, a knight, a mage, a steampunk, a priest, or a thief. and there's male and female versions of each. And what they're able to do is those give them different perks throughout the year. So you can carry more weapons if you're a barbarian, you can take less damage if you're a knight, etc. So now I had my avatar base, I had my story and my narrative base, and then I started going, okay, well, what are in game? So I have about, I think at this point, probably 65 different game cards in my game. So they have cards for accessing things for attacking, things for defending, things for modifying XP and leaderboards, and then rare ultra elite items and things like that. I've even gone as far as like I use like clear nail polish and I make sparkly cards, and like if people watching this remember the old hockey cards with jersey pieces.
Yeah, definitely.
I said our principal died and he was in war and he had 3 pieces of his robe. So I actually took like this old cloth and like bloodied it up and like sealed it, laminated inside cards. And then they have these series of riddles and puzzles they have to solve in order to find this. And they find his sword and shield in the end, and it's super powerful for games and things. Then I did a badging system, and the badging system for anyone who is gamifying, a huge tip for this is to make sure that you're badging authentic behavior and you're not telling them what it is. So I thought about the concept of Xbox achievements. You know what they're called, but you don't know how to get them. Right. So it forces exploration. Right. So kids will know that there's a badge called Flawless. Kids will know there's a badge called Nerd Alert, and they don't know how to get it, but they'll try different things in which to get it. And then what you want to do is you want to reward authentic behavior, because if you have one called Helping Hand, where a kid helps a kid who spills his pencil kit all over the hall, you don't want to tell kids because then they'll all go do it for the badge. So I always keep it like the Xbox system. And I use it that way. I have a game currency and a whole monetary systems, because I found out kids didn't know how to write checks. Kids had no idea how to enter money into banking information. So there's a whole monetary system. So they earn money. I have jobs, resumes, applications. They work in my kingdom, running my shops, cleaning, doing art and design for the classroom to keep it up to date so it looks medieval.
Wow.
I'm sure there's more stuff I'm forgetting, but yeah, that's probably like the core. Oh, I have different ways to submit work. One of the things that a lot of people notice, I've got this big 4x8 giant board game I invented, because worksheets are terrible, like if we're being honest. Yeah. But they're good to find out what kids know, but a lot of kids don't care about them. So what they do is when they complete a worksheet, they get to go to this battle board and they get to fight monsters. So every correct answer equals hit points lost from a monster. And if they kill the monster, then I made custom scratch cards where they can search the area to find out if he dropped any loot, which was a cool idea that worked really, really well. Kids really like that. I figured out, like, a lot of people are like, well, how the heck do you run your class for subs? Because a sub might walk into your class and be like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I have these speeches that the subs read, that they're like some weary traveler through the land, and I've given them control of the kingdom for a day. And my subs can issue cards that only the subs can issue. And if you collect a certain amount of them, then you unlock access to a diamond mine, which has scratch off diamonds, and they're worth huge amounts of money. And it forces cross trading between classes, because you have to have 3 of them in different color. Plus subs can curse people, which is always fun. And then they have to deal with me to get the antidote to the curse when they come back. We've got leaderboards. We've got crafting stores. That's one thing that's unique. See, I'm trying to keep it this short, but I'm on like 9 minutes of explaining.
That's fine. That's fine. It was really involved from what we talked about with you a little bit earlier, and what we're going to lead into is you actually did write a book about this and how to get started with gamification in your classroom. It's called Press Start to Begin. We're going to put a link to it in the description of this, as well as the one it was called Multiplayer Classroom, you said, from Lee Sheldon. That's right. And we'll put a link into that one as well to help anyone get started with this. But as we were talking earlier, when you wrote your book, you wrote it in 3 days. Yeah. And you said you basically didn't sleep. And it sounds like you're an insomniac, because for the amount of effort you have to put in to make this work over the past 2 years, I mean, it seems like it took a lot of time to actually to get this to where you wanted it to be.
Yeah, you could say so, for sure. The cool part is that I'm a huge advocate for listening to our kids. And I think a lot of people in education sometimes ignore the kids. And what I did fully was I was like, guys, what do you know about games? What would work? What would not work? And I had a lot of kids give me a lot of the ideas that I use in my classroom. And then I tweaked them to make them work, because sometimes they were just a little too far-fetched. So we made some modifications together to make them work. So it worked really, really well. What happened with me writing the book is back in February here, we have a teachers convention where thousands of teachers get together. And I presented this over a course of 3 hours for about 65 teachers.
Wow.
And a newspaper reporter came and she live tweeted my session. And then she was like, can I come see your class? And then she wrote a story that God knows how, but made the front page of the newspaper in Edmonton. And then someone in a community outside of Edmonton put it on Reddit under uplifting news. And it got upvoted to the front page of uplifting news for Reddit.
Wow.
So all of this, and I had no idea this happened. So this is kind of how it all exploded. I started getting emails from people all over the world asking me how I did it, from like Colombia, Australia, Italy, all over the place. And I was like, how does everyone know about this? Like,
Right.
journal, you know, like I'm sure people don't have international subscriptions to this. And people were like, oh, it's on Tumblr, it's on Instagram, it's you know, just got shared virally. And the video, this video they made, it was about 2 minutes long, got shared about 200,000 times. So I started getting all this contact, and people were like, you need to teach me how to do this. And so once our March break hit, I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it now.
Right.
So I wrote the book, and where I think my book is unique is one of a couple ways. My book is gamified in itself. So to teach people about gamification, I wanted them in the gamified mindset right away. Because a lot of people say, well, I'm not a gamer, or I don't know anything about games, so I'm never going to gamify my class. And it couldn't actually be further from the truth. You just have to be creative. I always tell people it's limited by your own creativity. And there's really no wrong way to do it as long as you're committed and enthusiastic about it. So the book is gamified. It's a choose your own adventure where you act as a teacher who's struggling with their class and engagement, and you receive this mysterious note from a Master Hebes, and you choose to go find him or not. And then you find him in this little cabin, and he educates you about how to gamify the class. And it's got some actual research that proves, you know, player types and how we're incentivized, and uses some books that people have written about the topic that people have got to know in the gamification world. The book is interactive. It uses Blip to teach them how to use Blip. And there's actually blips inside the book. There's a scratch ticket at the end to show them examples of how the scratch ticket works. There's like actual, at one point you check a pocket to see if you have something in your pocket based on the story. So I actually make the pocket in the book, and you like pull out the physical envelope, and there's like a notepad in the back. So I really tried to make it gamified. And I edit it, I publish it. I had a student design the cover. So, I mean, I'm running, it's turned into this little mini business. I sold one today. So I'm at like 47 books globally, which I think is pretty cool since March, considering I'm not working with anyone except myself. And I'm just, but what's been really, really positive is the feedback I'm getting from teachers. I mean, it sells for $100 with a lot of people are like, why would, but it's just because it's me. So I have to buy everything and ship it and everything. So anyone listening, if they see that, that's why. I'm not being greedy. It's just because I'm not with a publisher. But I know a teacher named Teresa Kelm has won a teaching award for teaching grade 5 science based on following the concept of the book.
Wow.
Some people have, they said it's just revolutionized their classroom. And that's kind of what it's all about. I never any money or anything off of this. But it's just one of those things where people have said, please, like, as respect for the work that you've put into it, let us purchase the book. So I have all kinds of examples and templates on my website of questing and work and things like that. But I'm pretty proud of the book. It's never anything that I thought I would do. There's a few errors inside, so I made a game. If you can find the spelling mistakes, then you get XP. And there's a leaderboard you can follow, actually, so people who buy the book can enter a Twitter contest by sending me pictures of them reading the book and different facets and stories. And then when they hit certain amounts of XPs, I send them bonus things digitally, like templates for badges or cards or things like that.
Right.
So anything to try to get people in the right mindset, because just to see the growth and the progress in students and all the positive feedback that I'm getting has just been so cool, and nothing I ever expected.
Wow.
You did mention Twitter, and your Twitter handle, which we found out earlier why it is this way. It's at Mr. Hebert PE. So you created your Twitter handle when you were a PE teacher before you got into science and doing all this, and that's great. Eric, I don't know, you got the next.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, there's no better way to engage the students. I'm engaged just listening to you. Obviously, what people have asked me about in the past with gamifying the classroom is engagement's definitely high on the priority list, and that's why people do it. The question usually from the naysayers, or the people kind of questioning how much is this work really worth doing, is then do they see that translate into the student work, and is it a higher quality work? And I mean, you would guess that anytime students are more engaged, they're going to want to put out higher quality work. But do you have data, or just in your 2 years experience, have you seen the students really kind of excel, meeting those standards and excelling on the products and projects that they're doing as well?
Yeah, for sure. So before I gamified, every unit contained 1 unit final, 1 midpoint quiz, 1 major project, and 1 vocabulary exercise for making study notes, which in reality I thought was pretty brutal when I looked at it in retrospect, because if I picked 1 topic for the major project that they struggled with, it was completely inadequate in terms of determining learning. And if they struggled with tests, because some people have test anxiety and some people just struggle writing tests even though they know the material, you know, it wasn't an adequate reflection of learning. So I probably give, I would say, 4 to 6 assignments every month of easy, medium, and hard difficulty. And the whole point every month is they're trying to achieve 1,500 experience points, but I give them the ability to achieve 2,000.
Okay.
Once they hit 1,500, that equals 100% in a quest set, is what they're called in a gradebook system. And then anything over and above moves them up and down the leaderboard. So that's where you get your super high achieving kids. And then you get your kids who really struggle or dislike school getting 100% on, you know, a vocab exercise. And then all of a sudden they see 100% and they're super excited. And then they want to try. So they self-scaffold. I don't even teach them that. They just end up self-scaffolding. They start with the easy quest, feel good about themselves, and they're more inclined to try something more difficult. What I've seen over the past 2 years, so the first year I did it, so going back 2 years when they were initially in grade 7 to grade 8 when I first tried this, the average grade increase was 7 to 12%.
Wow.
Per student. And I had kids who failed grade 7 who got in the 90s in grade 8 because they said that it was just such a different way of learning that they just didn't want to stop, right? And so like I give you an example that blew me away. I had a girl who, when I said the name Scientiaterra was Latin, she taught herself how to write in Latin and then wrote a project in Latin and then gave me a dictionary to translate her work. And that was a daunting task, to say the least. So it was like that kind of stuff has just been, you know, I tell them, I said, in the world of science, all of the basic solutions have pretty much been solved. It's now time for deep, complex, outlandish thinking to save things. So like, who would have thought we could fight cancer with nano robots and reprogramming viruses? You know, you go back 100 years, they would have said that you're insane. And that's literally where medicine is moving, right? So I'm trying to teach kids that if you want to, there's no wrong way to give me work. So all of my work is essentially, if you look at it on a straight line, you meet someone, they give you a task, so you know the goal, and I don't fill the path in. And I think education too much fills the path in. They say, this is what you have to do along the way to get to it. So I got so tired of marking identical projects all the time. So now I get so many like cool, creative, like deep thinking projects because the kids pick their strength and they really excel in them. So if they feel like they're really good with art, or they're really good with mathematics or really good with engineering, they put those passions in. And then if I find they do it too much, I'll add a challenge where I'll say, you can't use that style anymore. I want you to go outside of your comfort zone and try something. And they're really receptive to that kind of stuff. So I've been receiving some like really, really cool projects and really unique work and yeah, of much higher quality than I used to receive.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's good to hear.
Sorry about, we had a little feedback there from afternoon announcements. We actually do these inside of one of our schools. We talked about a few times on some of these videos. So one of the things you just spoke about is that one of the things as educators we got to look at more is that there are unique and different ways to do things, and the students need to start thinking about things and doing projects in more unique and different ways.
Yes.
And when you talk about the way that you do gamification in your classroom, you have a very complex and thought out process that you're doing, and that might seem daunting to people, as Eric alluded to, but there are parts you don't have to do it exactly the way you did it. And I think that's one of the keys that need to be stated here is that you are certainly an advocate for it, and you've done a fantastic job doing it and have come across some amazing results for it. But you could just take bits and pieces from this. You could just take, for instance, the badging system and use that into your classroom instead of coming across the whole thing. If you want to just start with one piece of it and say the badging part seems really cool, we can come up with badging or trophies or achievements or whatever, and then take it on from there. It's exactly what you can make of it as well.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the book stresses. The book kind of gives you some background to it, and then it says, look, I wouldn't recommend doing what I did right off the hop.
Right.
There was a lot of learning that I had to, undertake, right? I mean, I had kids who tried to build a jail and then self-police a jail in the back of the classroom. And I mean, that was a gong show, right? So there's certain things that, worked and didn't work. But I always recommend, a really awesome way to do is if you want to just get kids' attention, walk into your classroom on Monday, put the number 5 on the board or 4 or some sort of countdown, and then plan to do a review game or what I call a guild battle on that Friday. And don't tell the kids what the countdown is for. Let them guess, let them have their hypothesis about what the countdown's for. Then you do this game. And, at the end, you give the winner, a card, which in the book has some links, like things like MTG Cardsmith or Pokemon Card Creator, whatever the age group you have, just to get these templates. And then, so you make this card, and, mine's called Clarity, and it's just a picture of a glowing eye. And if they give me that card during a test, I'll answer a 1-point question for them. Oh. So you have a test out of 55 marks. I answer 1. It's nothing, but to the kid, it's the most empowering thing in the world because all of a sudden the teacher's question. But you don't. So people who are like, well, how are they learning? Well, the amount of work they had to do to achieve that card
was more than the one on the test.
Exactly. Like, by 10, right? Times 10. Right. So the whole notion is that you'll find right away if your kids will grasp that. The other thing is if you're going to try this, you try it in the short term and you have to be enthusiastic. Right. If you're like, yeah, we're going to gamify the class and we're all warriors. The kids, right? They recognize right away. So yeah, exactly. Right. So like I have a big staff that kids make me. My chair got paper mache'd into a throne, and I don't have furniture in my classroom. I could probably give you a quick peek. It's a little bit dismantled right now. So it's one of those things where it's like my class is medieval. Like I have bricks, covered all over the wall, and my wall is painted like a sky on one side, and I've got LED clouds hanging from the ceiling. Oh my gosh. And all these kind of different things that I just progressed over time, right? I just used with no budget. I just used and learned how to use recyclable things and just make them work. And then ask super talented kids with art, hey, can you make this look like a rock? Can you make this look like a sword? Can you make my chair look like a throne? And they're just amped about it when you ask them. And then I pay them a little currency in the game for their services, and they just get like super excited about it. So,
wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, I would always say you start small. So I would start with a little lesson or like a week of gamified thing with like a short target. Then I would go into a unit or maybe a month of time where you give them a little set goal. We're trying to figure out who stole this cup or whatever, right? You just kind of progress through, and then you kind of culminate into a semester or multiple units or a whole year like I did.
Very cool. Now, have you ever tried this with professional development with staff at all, or have you heard of other people who have tried anything close to what you've pulled off in the classroom?
I have heard I haven't personally, but I have heard there's a phenomenal Twitter group, 2 of them. One is the hashtag GBL for game-based learning. Right. And one is hashtag XPLAP or XPLAP, which is based on the book Explore Like a Pirate by Michael Matera, which is another great gamification book. And it's one of those things where those can, like, for people who are interested and, maybe they can't get my book or they the blogs and things aren't what they're looking for on my website, or the YouTube channel I run about it isn't what they're looking for. That community, you throw it out there, hey, has anyone, tried this at this level, at this subject, and throw that hashtag, and you'll be shocked at how many people, out there have tried bits and pieces of it and have great information. But I know that this is something that people are trying on a PD thing for sure. Haven't, but I know that it's something that's starting to emerge.
Yeah, I could definitely see the badging system work real well for PD.
Yeah, especially when they culminate to a day off.
Yeah, right. There we go. If we could just get that.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're obviously, I think we're on a little bit of a time constraint because you're in a different time zone than we are, and you're probably getting close towards the end of your lunch block here. So
I got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
All right. So I don't want to keep you too long. I just wanted to throw at you a little bit to talk about your TEDx talk. You were filmed doing a TEDx talk about gamification and about everything you've experienced. What was that like to be able to go out and do a TEDx talk about everything that you've done?
Oh, that easily one of the coolest moments, to be in front of those TEDx letters on that dot, and to be broadcast in a community of 7 million plus people on YouTube was just unbelievable. And it was just really neat how receptive people were. Like when my talk was done, the person I was taking photos for the event, and the organizer and a couple people just ran up to me. They're like, that talk was phenomenal. Like, great job. And there's something really empowering about sharing your idea with people, on such a cool and well-known format.
Right.
And it was empowering too for me, because it was one of the first times I really shared my story about education, which essentially, in a nutshell, for those who haven't seen it, was I was told by my first placement teacher that I would fail as a teacher, and that I should probably consider a new career, essentially, because I was too lax as a teacher. I was too based on fun. I wasn't, rigid and traditional in teaching, and that I would get eaten alive as a teacher, essentially. And so it was at that point when I just I'll dedicate my whole career to proving that you're wrong. That's kind of what I've done, essentially, is that, just because we learned one way doesn't mean that that's the way that education has to continue. So that's kind of the fundamental basis behind what I spoke about.
And you went back all the way back to your childhood and your high school experiences about everything that you did playing sports and growing up, and how you did different things, and how that all influenced you to become the person you are and become the educator you are. It's a fantastic YouTube video. We're going to put links to everything you have and everything you've talked about in the description here. We're going to heavily push all your stuff out there, because I'll be honest, I kind of screwed up filming the beginning of this, and I just kept the camera on you the whole time because I was so engaged in what you were talking about that I forgot to run cameraman. So I apologize for that.
No, that's okay. That's no problem.
Eric, any last thoughts before we head out here?
Only if you have a couple minutes, if we could see the room. That would be something I would love to see a quick peek at, if it's possible. But.
Yeah, no, it shouldn't be a problem. I have a couple minutes. It's a little bit dismantled right now because I got to tear down for the end of the year.
Yeah, well, that happens in medieval towns as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So there's from over here. That's my battle board. So that's where kids can work. That's kind of a board game I put together, other kinds of things. I had a kid bring me a dragon kite, so I have a dragon in my class. Okay, I have game cards right now that are getting turned in at the end of the year, so that's just kind of a little pile of them. You can kind of see, like, I have my little throne here that my students made for me, which is kind of neat. I have my
that's beautiful.
Yeah, they did a great job. I've got my big staff I walk around with. You can see it's heavily decorated. So the sense of, like, I got the bricking and everything kind of laid out. You'll see I have no furniture. That's with intent.
Okay.
I think that a lot of the times kids don't appreciate what we have and what we offer to them for education. Right. And through Twitter, I've connected with different teachers all over the world who, teach in classrooms that are nothing but walls and floor, and kids are super excited to get to school. So I was like, you know what, if I strip everything from my room, maybe kids will actually have an appreciation when they have to earn everything. So they literally have to earn everything. I have a whole set of resource cards, like lumber and metal and cotton. And they actually, next year, this tray of wood is going to be categorized right here with this big blue mountain. And they're actually going to be able to build their own furniture. That's
nice.
One of the things we'll be doing next year. So they're going to be building their own furniture for the room. I've got, like, little decorations. Someone from a buy and sell site gave me a whole pile of these little Warhammer figures.
Warhammer,
so yep. So I created this little war zone along the sides to kind of clean stuff up. I've got fake grass, and next year kids will be able to grow grass for their guild instead of sitting on the floor if they don't want to sit on the floor. I'm fortunate because my room has display cases, so I turn them into my stores. So this one here is my blacksmith shop.
Gotcha.
And this one here is my actual, like, trade shop with cards and things like that. I collect random things. Like, there's a horse skull for some reason. Who knows?
Well, it's science. I mean, those things are all part of it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a little diamond mine I was talking about where kids can actually mine. So when you flip it over, you actually insert your different cards that you earn.
Wow.
And then inside, if I can find one, there's little scratch ticket diamonds. That's kind of what the subs have the incentive of offering kids.
Very cool.
And then I just learned how to recycle. Like, I thought about that punching game that exists in I got announcements now. Yeah. That little punching game that exists in The Price is Right. So I just literally took paper box lids and covered it in tinfoil, and they can punch inside and see if there's a card, because this guy was turned into a rabbit, and he buried some stuff to hide it. The back of my room's got it had cool cork boards, so I made it into, like, message boards where I display messages for kids. That's the map of Scientia Terra, which is an old video game map I found online, and then I just kind of, like, pieced it together.
Nice.
There's the message board where all 4 classes cross communicate. So and again, like, this is cool, right? So I received work. This kind of fell apart a bit, but this is a definition, a vocab assignment, but they gave it to me rolled up in a scroll. So I get kind of things in like really unique ways. Like I got a message in a bottle. Everyone thinks I hide wine in my class, which, I guess I just say it's a message in a bottle, but I got all that stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, there's my clouds. I got my
amazing job
and things. So it's something that I've just really I've had so much fun and taken so much pride in really kind of creating this environment. So if I'm going to make it believable, I have to sell it to be where I say that they are, right? Like I had kids interested in medicine. So you'll find on my Twitter or Instagram or something, which the Instagram's the same account at Mr. Hebert PE. On there, you'll see that I built a corpse for the kids interested in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And I filled it with beef and pig organs. And I put blood clots in the brain. And I said that he died of a stroke, but I didn't tell them that. So they had to perform an autopsy, cutting through ballistic gel and pulling out the organs. And I had kids who were 13 years old diagnose a stroke.
Wow. And
they found the clots. They diagnosed the stroke. They gave me a full autopsy report. I had chief of surgery, neurosurgery, blah, blah, blah. And so, like, again, I looked at it. If you were like, I didn't think that the way I taught science before I did this was any way reflective of helping them get deeper into the material. It was just regurgitation of fact.
Right.
So to teach the human anatomy, I got organs and I had them cut them open and explore them. And, I thought that was incredible that 20 some kids did this on their own time during lunches for about 3 weeks, performing a fake autopsy and diagnosed a stroke. I thought that was incredible. They knew what to look for. They were bringing in anatomy books from libraries and, so it was pretty cool.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Scott, we want to thank you so much for your time. It's been a really fantastic conversation, talking about how you've done everything you've been doing and everything you're probably going to continue to do. And I know you've got kids coming in now that need to build their furniture to be able to sit down and take their exams. So we want to make sure you turn yourself back over to your kids very soon. But again, it's at Mr. Hebert PE Twitter and Instagram channel. It's also mrhebert.org is the website. And again, the book is called Press Start to Begin. You do sell it on your website, and we're going to point everyone to that, and we're going to pump your book heavily and try to make you as much money as possible on this because it's really a fantastic
my family would
thing.
Appreciate that. My wife's in her master's, so that's getting pretty expensive.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. Yeah. Thanks again, Scott. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, guys. I love talking gamification. So anytime you or anybody else wants, I'm all for it.
All right, great.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Scott. We'll talk to you later.
Have a great rest of the school year.
Here, guys. Bye.
All right, see ya.
Bye now.